Kategate. What will this one's wife do to upstage the Princess of Wales? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The recent absence of the Princess of Wales, the speculation about her whereabouts, and the subsequent revelation that she has a diagnosis of cancer provides us with an optimal opportunity to understand the dynamic between a narcissist and an empath, the way that an empath responds to the scrutiny that she has been subjected to, the way that the narcissist responds to this news. It provides me with a real-life example of behaviors so that I can then better explain to you the various strands and aspects of the dynamic and address questions that are undoubtedly forming in your mind. As you know, the narcissist cannot stand for attention to be elsewhere. This causes two problems for the narcissist. The first, the narcissist does not have control over the relevant appliance, person. If an individual is talking to somebody other than the narcissist, that means that the narcissist does not have control of them. This makes the narcissist feel unimportant. It starts to weaken the narcissist. It causes the narcissist return to that vulnerability when they were a child and did not have any control. The second problem is that it is starving the narcissist of fuel. As you know from my work, fuel is the lifeblood of the narcissist. Accordingly, where attention, emotional responses, praise, concern, hatred, whatever it might be, is being directed elsewhere, i.e., not towards the narcissist, there is a problem both in terms of control and the provision of fuel. This wounds the narcissist. It is a major problem for the narcissist. It is a major problem for this one's wife at the moment that there is so much attention on the Princess of Wales and that attention is supportive, admiring, and sympathetic. This one's wife believes she should be receiving all of this attention. What makes it worse is, of course, that the Princess of Wales is her nemesis. Thus, it will be infuriating this one's wife that this attention is going elsewhere. Now, Catherine, as an empath, does not need fuel. Naturally, she is appreciative and likes the fact that people are being sympathetic, that they're being supportive, and certainly it is much needed after the various criticisms and unnecessary speculation that she has been subjected to, the online bullying that has taken place, and therefore will no doubt prove much relief to her, particularly given her compromised physical health. This gets under the skin of this one's wife. The press are all talking about Princess Catherine. They're not talking about this one's wife. Social media is talking about the Princess of Wales. And where there is commentary about this one's wife, it's invariably challenge fuel, criticising her behaviours, speculating on what she might do, people commenting about how her behaviour may well have contributed to the unfortunate situation that the Princess of Wales finds herself in. If you can imagine narcissist headquarters somewhere within the head of this one's wife, there'll be an urgent meeting convened of all of the relevant committee members as they sit there and decide what is it that we can do to bring attention back onto our narcissist, i.e. this one's wife. If you can picture a series of minions, perhaps all sat around a boardroom table, debating the various options and strategies and tactics that they might utilise to ensure that attention is pulled away from the Princess of Wales, comes back onto this one's wife, thus enabling her to regain control over many sections of the public and receive that much-needed fuel. I know a number of you are, of course, curious as to what it is that this one's wife might well do, by virtue of the fact that as a narcissist, She needs to do something to bring that attention back onto her. And therefore, to assist you with your understanding of how a mid-range narcissist may well respond in relation to somebody who is painted black, I'm going to provide you with a variety of scenarios, and you can make a determination as to whether you think one of those is most likely, or whether you think it's something else altogether. One consideration would be for this one's wife to go all Florence Nightingale, to express considerable concern for her sister-in-law, to basically state that notwithstanding the cooling of relations of late, when it comes to matters such as this, everything else pales into insignificance. That she boards the next flight, bringing Harry and the children over as a show of support, offering to assist wherever she can. A flight of mercy, that she swoops in there to assist and support. Certain mid-range narcissists would very much do that. They see themselves as caring and empathic, which is what this one's wife sees herself as, although, of course, as you know, her behaviour is anything but. The mid-range narcissist, particularly that of middle range type A, the overwhelming angel, sees themselves as ostensibly a good person that is there to dispense kindness and compassion and caring wherever they go, that they operate this facade of being a good and caring person. And they will engage in acts which dispense that kindness and caring, but it's all false. It's done, not out of altruism or any genuine concern or emotional empathy. It's done for the purposes of getting to the prime aims. We've seen in the past this one's wife turn up and appear to express concern. She swooped in as the Ghoul of Uvalde. She handed out a birthday cake at another instance of being the Ghoul of Uvalde. She has preached at people from the stage about COVID vaccinations. She has turned up to supposedly demonstrate her concern for online safety. But what you don't see is this one's wife rolling her sleeves up and really getting in amongst it. Yes, she stood around doing a little bit of writing on bananas and packed lunches for sex workers a number of years ago, and she occasionally pops into a kitchen to watch somebody make something and perhaps join in for 5 minutes for the purposes of filmed footage and photographs. But you never hear about her rolling her sleeves up and getting really stuck in. Why? Because she believes herself to be above that. Furthermore, she's intrinsically lazy, and her narcissism deems that she can achieve certain things by virtue of a brief appearance and words rather than the actual doing. This is common with many narcissists. Why go the extra mile to get to the prime aims when it can be done, if you like, on the cheap? Thus, this one's wife's narcissism is unlikely to direct her to get on a plane and head to the United Kingdom and show support for the following reasons. 1, she's intrinsically lazy. 2, her narcissism still regards the United Kingdom as a hostile place by virtue of populace, other members of the royal family, and the media. Thirdly, it wants economy of effort, as I've just explained. And fourthly, Catherine remains the nemesis, and therefore the narcissism is loath to provide her with anything actually meaningful by way of support or help. What we saw instead was a somewhat icy 2-sentence message calling her Kate, which demonstrates the dripping contempt that this one's wife still has. It was necessary for her to issue some form of statement. She would have been completely slammed if she had not, but you could imagine it was done through gritted teeth. And accordingly, while some narcissists would suddenly gear up and galvanize themselves to suddenly be running around and helping the person who has become ill, this one's wife isn't going to do that, for the reasons that I've explained. Number 2, there's a sudden announcement that she's leaving Harry. This certainly would be a bombshell moment that would ensure that the world's press would suddenly be directed onto her, and there'd be massive amounts of commentary and speculation. It would certainly do the job in terms of ensuring that she had control once again and would bring a lot of fuel. However, this also is unlikely. Whilst it's an option, and of course with the narcissist nothing's off the table with regard to the pursuit of the prime aims, she's unlikely to do that because he still serves a purpose. She's still able to control him fairly easily. He still provides her with plenty of fuel. There are some character traits which are still useful, namely the acquisition of the title, which he keeps still dining out on, and of course the residual benefits of the fact that he's a prince and the money that's associated with that. Whilst his stock has been diminishing, and we know that he's been in a sustained devaluation, the fact is that ultimately he still serves a purpose, and there isn't a disengagement trigger that's about to be pulled. And notwithstanding the necessity of trying to upstage the Princess of Wales, the narcissism is unlikely to go down this route because it would jeopardise the situation for this one's wife. Number 3, her own mystery illness. This is a distinct possibility. As we know, this one's wife is prone to copying and mimicry. This is because there isn't an original thought in her mind, that she operates by way of mirroring other people and character trait acquisition. It is quite common for the narcissist that you've got a cold, they've got flu. You've got a sprained ankle, they've broken their leg. That all of a sudden the fractured eyelash appears, which means immediate hospitalisation and the giving of the last rites. The narcissist one-ups you with regard to the extent of their illness or injury in order to wrestle sympathy away from you and to bring it onto them. This thus gains control and provides for oodles of fuel. Therefore, there is the possibility that this one's wife may well concoct some kind of illness, explaining that she's got some health issues as well, in order to try and gain some sympathy. Whilst many people would immediately respond with, look at that, she's simply copying or trying to outdo Catherine, don't forget that her narcissism won't necessarily be thinking in terms of the reaction by way of copying, but rather would be more concerned with what can we do to get attention back on our narcissist. And it doesn't matter that she's copying. It doesn't matter that she's emulating. It doesn't matter that she's competing. The fact is, if it does the job, then it does the job. Might it be, for instance, that she suddenly announces that she had a cancer scare, perhaps recently? It might be the case that rather than say that she's currently unwell, that she seeks to bring up the past by making reference to some health issue that she purportedly had, even though it wasn't reported at the time. That she concocts that she had a cancer scare in order to try and show some apparent solidarity with Catherine whilst bringing attention back onto herself, but not actually being ill at the current time. That's a distinct possibility. It would enable her to draw attention back onto her, it would draw fuel, and it also would mean that she wouldn't have to actually admit to being ill now, but would say, "Oh, I once was." A little bit like the way that she repeatedly brings up the Procter & Gamble story, that it wasn't actually solely her that caused Procter & Gamble to change the advertisement, and it wasn't something that was current, but she uses something from the past which has been revised in order to control the now. Accordingly, there is the distinct possibility that this one's wife will either develop some kind of illness or injury, or alternatively reveal that she did have some kind of illness not so long ago, even though it's not true, for the purposes of bringing that attention back onto herself. Number 4, something happens concerning the children. There is the possibility that she would just roll out some pictures or some footage of the children, since they're hardly ever seen, in an attempt to bring attention back to her. The difficulty with that, however, is that it might not be enough, and furthermore, it's about the children and not her. And as I've explained to you before, leaving aside the issue of whether the children exist or not, if you accept that they do, one of the fundamental reasons why you don't see them is that it means that the attention's on the children and not this one's wife. Releasing something in relation to the children would certainly draw attention away from the Princess of Wales, but it might not exactly place it upon this one's wife. And therefore, whilst it's a possibility, one sees it as an outside one. Instead, what she might do in relation to the children is cause there to be some apparent emergency or crisis. The dropping of the narc bomb is quite common, whereby the narcissist does or says something which is rather alarming or creates a false crisis in order to bring attention onto them, and often to stop you doing something. Dropping the narc bomb is quite common when, for instance, you're going on a night out or a weekend away, that the narcissist seeks to jeopardize your plans by creating some false emergency. If she's able to create some false crisis or some false emergency with regard to the children, she brings attention away from the Princess of Wales, but she could also utilize it to establish once again her credentials as a loving and caring mother. That she's rushed to the side of Archie after he fell off his tricycle, or that there was something wrong with Lily, that she turned a strange colour, resulting in a mercy dash to the hospital. Fortunately, everything turned out to be okay, and it was simply the case that she had picked up this one's wife's bronzer and smeared it on her face by mistake. The fact is, an illness or an injury in relation to the children would be a possibility for this one's wife, because it would enable her to make it all about her using them, her alarm at what has happened, the mercy dash, and of course her concerns, and ultimately allowing her to manage that facade of showing what a caring mother she is. Another option that is available to her with regard to seeking to upstage the Princess of Wales is reconciliation with her father. She would spin it as if to say, recent events in relation to King Charles and Princess of Wales has caused her to realise that family is more important than whatever might have gone on. Or she might not even make such an announcement, but simply go to visit her father, not offering a reason as to why she's done it, but simply stating that it has happened. Naturally, Thomas Markle will be receptive to this, as it will help manage his own facade and enable him the sensation of control over his daughter. Furthermore, this one's wife would revel in doing this. It would enable her to manage her own facade as being the kind and forgiving daughter that, notwithstanding whatever reprehensible behaviour it is that Thomas Markle Sr. apparently engaged in, she has forgiven him because she is, of course, such a kind and compassionate person. Such a reconciliation would fit also with the flavour of supporting family, which has become so prevalent as of late. It also would enable her to upstage and would allow her to silence certain of her critics who repeatedly point out that she doesn't show any compassion for her father, or at least in her mind believe that she's able to silence them in that regard. The fact is, many people will still point to the fact that she's not done it for such a long time, that she ought not to have done it in the first place. It's too little too late, a little bit like the message that was sent to Catherine, and many people will see it for what it is, a transparent attempt to upstage Catherine as a consequence of all of the attention that she's getting, and to manage the facade. But in terms of bombshellness, if we can use such a term, it would be up there, and would be relatively easy for her to undertake, as he doesn't live too far away. It would certainly appeal to her deluded image of her being a kind and compassionate person, and it would, of course, bring plenty of attention. That is perhaps the ace up the sleeve that this one's wife has. Many people wouldn't believe that it was genuine, and they would be right, but that wouldn't stop it being reported on. That wouldn't stop the attention going to this one's wife. She could make a big show about caring for him, having the discussions with him, and then, of course, she would just pop him back on the shelf and maybe disengage from him a second time in order to allow her to just get on with what she's done. That she can make this show of apparent concern and compassion, garner all of the fuel and attention that comes with it, and then, right, that's enough of that, pop him back and not bother with him once more. Reconciliation with the father is a possibility and would be hugely attractive in terms of its newsworthiness. The other option is that she seeks to fill the gap, She's been doing this to an extent already, with the fact that the Princess of Wales has not been seen because, of course, she'd been recuperating and receiving treatment, and the fact that King Charles is less prominent and that William has been less in the public eye because he's been looking after his wife and family. This has afforded an opportunity for this one's wife to rehabilitate her image again and be seen a lot. Accordingly, what she may well decide to do in order to bring the attention back onto herself is continue with this increased general exposure, more PR puff pieces, more charitable attendances, more philanthropy, more purchasing places on panels, etc., all done for the purposes of making herself look better and plugging the gap. Whilst it remains the case that there's still plenty of attention on the Princess of Wales, both in terms of the diagnosis, the press will keep wanting to know how she's doing, how she's progressing, when she might make a return to public life, and of course, and something I'll be commenting on further in a future video, the trolling still keeps rolling out. Thus, this one's wife does need to do something, and general exposure is something that she may well ultimately opt for, because she sees an opportunity to plug the gap, and because it's comparatively easy for her to do. Be under no doubt, this one's wife cannot let the current situation persist. She cannot allow the Princess of Wales to upstage her, even though, of course, the fact is that the Princess of Wales isn't bothered about receiving all of the attention. She doesn't need fuel. She hasn't made any effort to garner all of this attention in the way that this one's wife would. Nevertheless, the Princess of Wales is receiving huge amounts of support and sympathy and admiration for her stoicism, all of which infuriates this one's wife, and her narcissism simply cannot countenance this state of affairs to continue. It must do something to bring the attention back onto her, and therefore this one's wife must do something to try and upstage the Princess of Wales. Those are the most obvious options that are available to her as a mid-range narcissist. And I think the bombshell move would be reconciliation with her father. But I think the most likely outcome is that she's going to try and fill the gap and continue with increased general exposure. What do you think about those possibilities? Do you agree with my selections? Do you think there's something else that she might seek to do? Let me know in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.